never ever have enough time to play it all. You know everybody wants to walk in someone else's shoes. Everyone's forgot who they are. Such a grind.
Welcome back to the Otter Creek in Rio Grande. And as I stand here today, it is Christmas Eve. So I don't know when this video will come out, probably sometime in January. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to solidify what's going to go on in this area right here. So there's definitely some scene composition going on and trying to figure out the correct heights for some of these structures. So what I've done is I have mocked up an ore bin. Now this is not the ore bin that comes with the kit. I kind of looked at the kit, a long time ago, and I haven't really revisited it, or at least I hadn't until this morning. And, I need the ore bin to face this way. The kit has it facing the other way, which I don't think will be that big of a deal. But kind of what I had in my mind all along was that this would be just a little bit higher than everything else over here, which would give me an opportunity to, create something in this area, maybe on the backside right here, where there would be an earthen walkway to get up to the hoist house. And all that sounds great. But one of the things, because I just eyeballed all this in the beginning, and I'm just now getting to the process of making things, right. And you can see that where these doors open up to load ore into a high side gondola, potato. This would have to raise up even more than it is now, which will increase the height of that. So I think the first thing I want to do is kind of figure out what is the optimal height for this. And that looks pretty good, but I think it could come down a little bit, and I think that helps me in the long run. So I think I could come down 5 millimeters, and that will help. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut 5 millimeters off of this foam. All right, you can see I have taken that down by 5 millimeters. Let's see how that affects things. I think that will work for now. It might have needed to be 4 millimeters. Of course, that's easily fixable in the future. I think for now that will work. So now you can see this has to go over the top. And the idea is we can dump ore in here and then continue on further down that way to dump our tailings. I'm just going to throw in a 1-inch chunk of foam here to see what it does. It's just almost there. Of course, the problem with this is because this isn't built, I'm not 100% sure how accurate these things are, but I think that puts us in the ballpark to know that it might be doable. The question, of course, is how does that impact, this area and the area behind? How does a little HO dude get up here to the hoist house, the shaft house, and do business? So I'm going to have to think about that a little more. There is another option, and that is the ore bins that come with the kit, which is Wild West Models Atlantic Cable Mine. So the way that this is modeled is that the trestle that comes out to the ore bin comes out in such a way that it doesn't work for where my track alignment is, which means I'd have to turn the bin itself 90 degrees to have it line up with my track. And I don't think that would be that big of a deal. You know, I could probably recreate this whole piece out of material that was the same size. I'm presuming that these are laser cut pieces because you can kind of see right there where they are lasered in a way that they overlap and create a longer piece. So I could probably come in with my own material and make it where that trestle comes across from the opposite direction, you know, 90 degrees difference, and then, you know, use side dump ore cars. So that's an option, and that option I believe would be the easiest to do because this should build up pretty quick. These Wild West model kits are really nice to build. And then that's going to put kind of everything on the same plane, right? Because it's designed to be all on the same ground level, which then would just be a matter of where does that ore bin fit, and it would be on the same height here, which is going to be about 3/8 of a difference. I'm pointing at things you guys can't even see. Hold on. So this is 3/4 inch foam on top of 3/8 plywood. So, you know, I might need to add, the easiest thing would be to come up with some 3/8 plywood and then just put another piece of 3/4 inch foam here for that. So, you know, form over function, you know, whatever you want to call it, it would definitely be easier to model. And I think right now, looking at this, you know, another 1 full inch plus whatever I would have to come up with, you know, another 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch higher is what I'd need. I think that would overcomplicate things. So, you know, kind of looking at this, and even though I spent, you know, not very much time, this is very crude, but I did spend some time on that. I think I would be ahead of the game to plan on building this, and then I could keep everything on the same 3/4 inch plane going across here with what I've already got. I think that's the game plan. I dug into the kit and looked at the ore bin, and, you know, for a brief moment I considered just building it, but I thought, no, I think I would be ahead of the game not to mess with any of this area, height, that kind of thing, until I build the kit. I can build the ore can in the kit, and then I'll have everything I need to do what actually needs to be done in this area, whatever it is. And in the meantime, I can look at this and, you know, who knows, maybe I'll come up with a better idea than I have now. So I want to move to the retaining walls. What I'm wanting is a retaining wall that starts right here and then kind of ends somewhere over in here, with probably some kind of bend or something in this area that breaks up the length of the wall. So what I've got is this McCarville Studios, Michael McCarville. If you're not familiar with his stuff, he's got several really good kits. You need to look into him. But I got this as a gift with one of the kits I purchased. And this is really a great tool. I haven't used it yet. I've been looking forward to it. But this is a template for 12 by material, and it's just a jig that you can build the wall in, and you can kind of, you know, build it however you want. I think, you know, if I build 8-foot runs, should end up somewhere over here, because I believe in between each of these rows is 8 feet. So you can build them like maybe all together or whatever. I'm going to explore exactly how that needs to be done, but I think it's going to work out perfect where I've got one wall that's kind of going this way like that, and it will interconnect with one maybe that's going this way. I may look at different angles, you know, because I would like this not to be running parallel with the other one. But we'll see how this goes. A little in progress on the McCarville Studios Monaghan mine cribbing, which is going to be my retaining wall. This is a pretty cool little jig, and it's versatile. So there's more than one way to use it, and so Mike provided scale 12 by 12 lumber in the kit, and I wasn't 100% sure if that was going to be enough material to do what I was going to do. So I used some of this 1/8 inch square material, which is a close approximation to a 12 by 12 in HO. You know, to the naked eye, you'd have a hard time differentiating between the two. It's just a little bit smaller, which caused a problem in the jig. So here's the first one I did, because I read the instructions, and in the instructions, Mike says that he cut all of the crosses, you know, the supporting material at 1.5 foot scale, and then all of the other pieces to 8 foot. And, you know, you put it in the jig upside down, and then you create all of the glue joints. And what I found was that was extremely tedious, and if you're not using the exact size material, it complicates things even more. And, you know, because you kind of end up making 3 or 4 glue joints all at the same time in one location there, and everything wants to move around on you. So what I did instead, after that one and not liking how it was going, I just decided the total length, and then I created cross cuts here to look like they've been, you know, you've got 8 feet joints, which I presume that, you know, these wouldn't have to be 8 foot. They probably also came in 12 foot and other lengths. So that's probably not a make or break kind of thing. But what I found works the best if you're using material that's not the proper size, because I haven't tried it with the provided Northeast scale lumber 12 by 12. It might work much better. You know, I just have been kind of creating them as one-offs, and even doing it this way where you kind of create one of them, even this way, they don't really want to glue together. So you can take it out of the jig and glue it up like that, and that works just fine. It's just a matter of kind of making sure that everything's lining up the way you want it to, if you want it to, because it might not have been perfect. So here's the first one, and I think it's going to work just fine. So they're designed to interlace with each other. This one's already broken, but that's how it's going to work. They'll interlace right here. I'll need to put another chunk on the bottom of the next one I build. I'm sure it's probably obvious how that's supposed to work, but it's going pretty well. Pretty cool jig. Worked out pretty good. I added one more 12 by 12 on the bottom here, which made these line up just almost perfectly. There's a little bit of a discrepancy in height right there, but will be no issue once I start working with Sculpt-A-Mold. Now, I think the next thing I need to do is to come up with some kind of foam filler piece in here so that I can backfill in debris, talus, whatever it is that the wall's actually holding back. So I need to figure that out. I think a 1-inch piece of foam should work. I might have to add a little more to it. We'll just have to see how it goes. When I introduce a gentle radius here, so it will kind of fit in there like it's supposed to. It's a pretty uniform radius. I might have got a little impatient on waiting for the Loctite power grab to dry, but it's gonna work, I think. I've got just a little bit of room all along the backside there that I can put in some fill that hopefully will make that look like it's doing its job. So I'm gonna have to think about what I need to do next. I'm getting close to being where I want to be to go big, so to speak, in the next phase. I felt like I had enough information, going on right through here that I could begin doing some work on this landform. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's roughed in. I think there's some repeating shapes in there that I need to go in and kind of get rid of. If you have too many of the repeating shapes, I think it kind of lacks credibility, maybe not. On the back side, this will never be seen. You really can't lean your head over far enough to even see this side. So this side might actually look better than the other side. I don't know. But I've got some places that I want to put some shrubberies and things like that. This will be a good experimental side to work with since it'll never be seen. And as I mentioned in the previous update, I took down all of this right here. So now you can see the track right through here. So you'll be able to see in a narrow window a train go by. Now this will need to come up a little bit, in 3/8 of an inch. So I'll adjust accordingly to what my eye sees once I do that. But overall, I'm fairly happy with the way this is looking at the moment. The scene for the most part is complete. I know there's going to be some things that'll have to take place in the foreground here. I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be. I know there would have been a lot of coal or maybe coke coming into this particular area for the boiler, so that's something I'm considering. Can I put something right in here that coincides with the road to get up here that's, you know, an offloading, maybe a drop bottom gondola would be leaving coal in this area. I don't know yet. Now over here, you can see I have moved the ore bin down this way. That facilitates the use of 4 cars that, you know, if you park your first one here, you're going to end up fouling the turnout, which I don't think that's going to be any big deal because I'm not ever actually going to do real-time loading. I'll come in with 4 cars, park them here, leave them there, and just have the ore bin there so that you could at least feasibly see how it would be done in real time, maybe if you wanted to. I think this whole thing is ready for sculpt to mold with the exception of this area right here. I think everything else, there's a few little more tweaks here and there that I probably need to do, but for the most part, it's ready for sculpt to mold. Let's take a look at what I've got going on down here. This area, I think, is also ready for the beginnings of groundwork and paint. All of this, you know, is now glued in solid. I've made some adjustments on this landform. I'm happy with it the way it is now. You know, one of the things I did is I tried to create some areas in here I call, I don't know, sky holes. If you're a painter, that might make sense to you, but it really looks better from a lower viewing angle than it does from a standing viewing angle. I've got all of this area that is pretty roughed in. I've got some ideas there. I think before I do anything here, I need to work with plaster cloth. I put in this sculpt to mold there, and it worked, but I think that it would have worked better on the plaster cloth. So I think that's the next thing I want to do. I think I want to start working this direction with plaster cloth and then see how it all goes. I think everything's, with the exception of a few more things to carve, I think everything's ready for groundwork and paint and sculpt to mold. got one more thing I want to try and do in this video, and that's kind of an experiment with painting the scenery base, just the brown paper here, and seeing how viable it is to paint it up as if it's a mountain, you know, without adding anything else to it, just the brown paper. I don't really have any expectations that it will work the way I want it to, but you don't know until you try, because there are elements, you know, right through here that look like a mountain pretty good all by itself. Finishing up my second coat here, and the more I do it, the more doubtful I am that this is going to work the way I hope it would. The idea is that this acrylic paint, and that's what this is, I'm using some high quality Sherwin-Williams primer that is acrylic, designed for primer, and it's supposed to have some kind of special adhesive qualities to it that makes whatever you're putting over top of it take a little bit easier. If I understand right, there should be more tooth in the paint. But you know, if it doesn't create a watertight skin over the top of the paper, then the next step I don't think will work at all. So it's going to be a matter of touch and go. I'm going to try a very small portion of the landform here, and if it looks like it'll work without my my brown paper, which is now white, turning into a mush, because I plan on using very thin down paints. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, then the next step will be going ahead and skinning it with plaster cloth, which is probably the better idea anyway. All right, I'm going to let that completely dry now. It's still mushy. So this is actually going a little bit better than I anticipated. I don't know that it's something that I would want to continue to work towards on scale. And I won't know for sure until, you know, maybe I do some work with plaster itself. But I've got yellow ochre, burnt sienna, a little bit of Payne's gray, and a burnt umber, or not burnt umber, just raw umber. And I'm trying to lay them on in very thin coats and shift the color from white to the beige that I'm looking for. Now, here is a piece of styrofoam. Make sure I'm on camera. I'm doing the same thing with it, kind of in the same layering process. You can see I've got the yellow ochre in here. You can see evidence of the burnt sienna and the other colors. You can't really see the Payne's gray. I'm being very careful with it. It goes pretty fast, you know, as far as the painting process goes. It's a matter of whether or not you're getting the end result the way you want it. And I think the trick, at least so far, my thoughts are, is how thin or not thin is your paint. Because if it's too thin, you're kind of working way too hard, way too many layers, even though you might end up with much better results. I wouldn't deny that. But I think there's kind of a sweet spot of how much pigment is in your water. And that's all this is water, and I'm using Liquitex paint, the medium soft body that you use, to paint a backdrop with. The idea is, of course, that I can use this in the same color scheme that I'm going to paint the backdrop with. And this loose talus in there, that is red dirt. All right, we'll let that dry a little bit. I'll come back after I'm kind of satisfied with the way things are looking and call this video quits. It's probably going to be a while doing a few more layers before I'm satisfied with what I'm trying to accomplish. End result of the test. So I got tired of trying to wash on, because it, regardless of how good the primer was on this, I think my paint was still too thin. And of course, we're talking about vertical surfaces. So getting that to stick in a way that worked well just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, at least not at the rate that I wanted it to. So I gave up on that, broke out the airbrush, and kind of went from there. And of course, this is the same technique. This is all acrylics. This is pretty much all airbrush. I even went back, in the area that I had done before, and I think they're a pretty close match for each other. I think, this is okay, but it lacks a certain amount of realism that this has because of the cracks and crevices that are in there. So I think the plan moving forward is to do a similar thing on the other side, only I will put plaster cloth, and I think I will also try and do some carving with Sculpt-A-Mold. And I want to do a few test pieces before I do that. I'm not sure, what exactly is going to happen next with scenery, but I'm pretty pleased with how this piece turned out, and it's promising. I think, hopefully, I will have all of this done at something that looks comparable to this, hopefully sometime in the next 6 months or so. Who knows? Thanks for watching. We'll see you around.